everybody, and welcome to the 28 for 28 podcast. So, the 28 for 28 is a campaign dedicated to inspiring and empowering young individuals to act on climate change. Our mission is to amplify their voices and stories, showcasing them as role models who are driving innovation and making a positive impact. Through this platform, we aim to provide a space where their impactful work can be recognized and celebrated. Today, we have with us one such change maker, Anushka. Anushka is the founder of the Kavach app. It is a preventative mental health awareness app that caters to adolescents. With the help of her app, she is actually helping adolescents in tackling mental health problems in adolescents due to climate change anxiety. Thank you, Anushka, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to talk to you.
Right. So let's get started. Can you share a little bit about your journey? What made you, what was the turning point in your life that made you start working for the climate, or where you realized that you should be working for mental health and climate?
So I actually started my work about 6 years ago when I experienced bullying myself. And then after I kind of overcame it, I started getting into initiatives regarding bullying. And so for 5, 6 years, I was only working on like bullying and kind of helping victims who have gone through it. And then after that, I got into mental health as a whole for adolescents. And now I'm working on adolescent mental health as a whole. So throughout this journey, I've been able to impact over 2 million adolescents in 20,000 schools across India. And some of the recurring problems that I see, definitely one of them is climate anxiety. And that's something a lot of my work focuses on. Climate anxiety is something that, you know, we don't really realize the effect that it has on people. It's one of those problems that, is not something that people make such a big deal out of. Like we report so much on the climate, we don't realize how it affects other people. And so I think that's why climate anxiety is a very, very important point of concern, because while it's important to move forward and keep working, it's also important to take a moment and ask ourselves how we're feeling about it. And so I've been working for a while now. I was also the youngest entrepreneur to get funded on Shark Tank India. And this year, I won the Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Bal Puraskar, which I received from the Prime Minister and President of the country. So it's been a really rewarding journey. And yeah, that's it.
Wow, all of that is really very impressive. So we also know that we since we're young, we face a lot of obstacles in this journey of change making. So can you share a little bit about these obstacles and how do you overcome them? What inspires you to keep going despite of these obstacles?
Um, so I think what we really do to ourselves, we kind of tend to underestimate our ability to actually deal with things. And at times our fear of the thing is greater than, the thing itself. And that's why it's so difficult to do new things, because we're so scared and about what other people will say, or we're just scared it's hard and we won't be able to catch up. But I think if we just give ourselves some more credit, then I think we'll really be able to do better things and feel less scared while we do those things. Like in a lot of times, you know, I was reading this like quote. I don't know where I found it, but it was something like, we're scared of tiny droplets, but we've already endured storms. So it's like what helps in like difficult moments where you face these obstacles is really to remind yourself of, if something like this has happened in the past, or if something difficult has happened to you, and what actually made you get out of it. And just the fact that you did get out of it, that could be a huge motivator. And even if, you feel like this is a new thing and it's not really something like I have ever experienced before, maybe, it's actually something that a lot of other people have experienced and they've made it out. Like, for example, when we face anxiety about like exams, something very common. But maybe it's helpful to remind ourselves that, there are people who have gone through this rigor and they've passed and they're doing all right. So it'll be the same for me. And honestly, the same goes for the climate. There's a lot of uncertainty around the topic, but again, if we just keep on reminding ourselves that there are good things happening and we've made progress, that could really help us see the situation a bit differently.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. A few days back, I was having this conversation with somebody, that there is a lot of uncertainty around climate, but maybe looking at it from a more positive lens will probably help us deal with it better as well, right? So thank you for that. Since you already know that, we'll be having the world leaders meet at COP28 towards the end of the month. So do you have any message for these world leaders?
Uh, So I would only like to say that, because my work focuses so much around adolescence and so much around climate, I know a lot of it is kind of like looking towards the future. And I think when we think about the future, it's really important to empower our young workers, our young people, because they are the ones that will kind of bring change and solve the problems that are plaguing the world right now, whether it's mental health, whether it's climate change. So I think if that was one thing I would say is just to keep on motivating and encouraging these young workers and giving them a platform, giving them a voice, because they really can use that voice and platform to create meaningful change.
Thank you for saying that. You have mentioned young people and young leaders who are trying to make an impact. So, do you have any message for these young people who wish to create an impact? Maybe they want to start with change making. What would you tell them?
Um, so I would say for me, what really helps is because, when we are talking about also finding solutions, at times we kind of immerse ourselves so much in a particular topic, we kind of spiral into just like a whole we just go into like an internet spiral and we just can't seem to figure out what happened, and we also feel very very pessimistic and stressed about the issue, and that's something I've also dealt with myself, like despite of the fact that I've been working for 6 years and there's countless issues that I work on, there are people who I meet who are still extremely, they don't understand, the need for mental health. They don't understand the issue of climate anxiety. And the thing is that, we are not a very progressive, like we haven't really reached that stage yet, I think, and we have a long way to go. And sometimes we, kind of focus on the path ahead, but we don't really focus on what we've already kind of seen and gone through. So at times where pessimism feels like it's the way to go, it's kind of important to again stop for a second and see that, it's not really going to take us anywhere, and we need to, if nobody else around us is being able to do that, then we need to be able to put on a brave face and take an issue heads on. And also, apart from that, apart from staying optimistic, it's also, I think it's very important to have a good understanding of what you actually want to work on, because of course there will be multiple projects working on climate change, working on mental health, things like that, but it's a good idea to have an understanding of exactly what gap you want to fill, what gap you want your project to fill, because of course, like, see, for example, you want to work on climate change, but you're not a world leader, you can't stop them from making factories and all of that, right? But what you can do is maybe spread awareness in your community, in your local community, and bring an impact, step by step. So what is important is to figure out your goal and make it very specific within your limits and your abilities, because that, I think, if you aim higher and you're not able to achieve it, compared to if you aim realistically and you're able to achieve it, I think that realistic aim will make a much bigger impact than whether you just talk about it vaguely.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Finally, my last question to you will be, you've mentioned that, you've worked in this field for 6 years now. So, what was that moment for you where you felt like, you've made a measurable impact and you have, a moment where you felt like, okay, I'm influencing people or I'm impacting people now?
Um, I think it's definitely been one of the moments where I've actually talked to the victims myself. So, of course, when you're getting, a lot of people assume it's like when you're getting awarded or when you're going on stage or something. But actually it's like when you're doing that, you're just in out of your head and you don't know what's going on and you're just completely frozen. But I think when I actually talk to victims, talk to people who know my work and who are also struggling with the issue, it feels like I'm really filling a gap and feels like I'm really making an impact then the most because you're actually talking to someone you directly help.
Oh, that's really meaningful. Thank you, Anushka, for this conversation. It was really great interacting with you, and I hope to have many such conversations with you. I hope your journey influences many more young people to take that step and go ahead and create change. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you everybody for tuning in to the 28 for 28 podcast.